Hello folks, my name is Kurt Wendt. You can also find me on YouTube by the name Gallery 3D. That's Gallery, the number 3, the letter D. This video is about the making of my Chinese dragon prototype or sculpture.
This is the head so far. This is the body so far.
This is my MakerBot, which I use to create my dragon. It produces rapid prototypes and is also known as a 3D printer. Now, my background is a bit of a hybrid. By day, I'm a PC database programmer in the middle of the fashion district in New York City. However, by night, I'm a 3D artist. I've also done teaching in the realm of 3D computer graphics. I'm now a rapid prototyper and inventor. But this alone does not explain why I decided to take on this huge task of making this dragon. Towards the end of this past August, the year 2013, I was accepted into the 3rd annual World Maker Faire. The fair was held in New York City in Corona Park, Queens, the former site of the World's Fair that was held in the 1960s.
Now, the World's Fair.
The World's Fair is a fair that happens in many locations around the world, and it's a huge technology fair that showcases upcoming technology, current technology, and future technologies. In the 1960s, this was held in New York City. For this fair, I wanted to make something big. I did not want to just come to the show and show off things that I made already in the past, which I have a number of different items, but rather I want to make something specifically for the fair. So, I decided I want to make something big that even other bot owners that operate MakerBots like my own, since they would know the limits of my bot. So I want to be able to impress not only them, as well as other attendees at the fair. So the point is, I wanted to make something in parts. This dragon is actually made up of different parts that had to be then assembled together. Before I ever decided to purchase my MakerBot, I was already in the planning that when I bought my bot, I would build something that was big, all based upon building things in parts. Upon deciding that I would take on this project to create this dragon, the first thing I did was go around the internet and looking for examples of dragons. I was really looking for a Chinese dragon, so these are images of what I found.
This is my toy dragon that I got in Singapore. My dad is using it as a model to build his own dragon.
Okay, so this dragon is what I used as the concept for my dragon. I wanted a head that was kind of exotic looking. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing where the head joins the neck. It's got a lot of kind of hair that flows. I'm not going to make mine quite like that. Another parts of it, if you notice all the little triangles that go over the back of the dragon, mine is going to be the same. I also wanted my dragon to have the general shape, whereas the neck comes down. I'm going to be showing my dragon in a moment, and then it bulges back up, and then it goes down, and then it goes back up again to the tail. I'm also going to be designing some kind of structure in the back of the tail that represents something that's a little bit fancy. Also notice that the feet have 3 toes in the front and a 4th kind of a toe in the back. I'm going to design mine with that same kind of a style. And again, my legs are going to be holding up the dragon at the base, same as the way it is here. So I'm going to make these feet structurally so that they can hold up that dragon. Lastly, again about the dragon body. This whole body is actually made up of many different parts. Anyway, the dragon body, the whole idea is it's made up of various parts. The main red part is actually 28 different parts. The parts are then joined together using acetone. This plastic is actually ABS plastic, the same plastic that Legos are made out of. And if you take acetone, which is what women use to nail polish off of fingernails, the acetone melts the plastic like acid, then it re-solidifies. And that's how I join all the pieces together using acetone. Okay folks, one of the challenges I faced when trying to design this whole body is that I wanted this to have scales. So if we look very closely, we might be able to see a little bit of the scales in here. You can sort of see it. You see the sort of bumping. And unlike regular 3D software, you can bump map things in and make it look like there's this texture, but this had to physically be there. And I actually designed these triangles. So in order to do this, I used two types of programming. By day, I'm a PC database programmer, and what you're seeing right now is the Microsoft Visual Fox Pro. This is a PC database system. So I wrote this program code. What you're seeing here, right here, is the actual program code. And in generating this code, what I'm doing is creating a program in Fox Pro that in turn generates Max script code that gets run inside of 3D Studio Max. So when I run this program, as I'll show you right now, it's going to run. This is what it generates. It's a type of text file, but in effect, it's actually program code. So we've got this editable poly, which represents the body of the dragon. All these numbers represent faces. The trick here is I was working at selecting specific faces on the dragon body, but specifically ranges, and the total number of faces on the body at this point in time, at this point, was somewhere in the ballpark of 35,000 faces. So I had to carefully select it. And also what I found out is that what I wanted to do is extrude polygons inward, and then I would squeeze one end of the polygons down to create this triangle. But I found that if I went towards the end of the tail of the dragon, I could not extrude it the same amount. So here we go. The initial extrusion for the main dragon is a negative 0.02. But then, and that does it for like about 3/4 of the whole dragon or more. Then as I get towards the tail, then the next section only goes down by a negative 0.01. Finally, at the very tail end of the dragon, it's only going to be negative 0.005 and a smaller value. So here's the code that it actually generates. And then at that point, I had to open up this program inside of 3D Studio Max, and here it is. I've opened up this program. Now, because of the kind of thing that it's doing and selecting thousands of polygons and doing this manipulation, once I run it, it took a long time to do. So here is the program within the Max script interface inside of 3D Studio Max. And here's the dragon body. And this is the first set of polygons. It's actually more like 4/5 of the whole body. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here, and you can see this. And these are the polygons that are currently selected. They're still selected. And I know it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to go towards an edge, what makes it a little bit easier to see it. They are actually extruded inwards. So here's these polygons extruded inwards. So once they've been extruded inwards, then I'm going to take one end of it and scale it down. So if I was to take, let's say, this face right here, and if I scale this thing down, it's going to end up creating this kind of a triangular face. Again, just to reiterate, the problem with trying to get all these triangles created on this body was that you're talking thousands of polygons. So now the initial body had in the ballpark of 35,000. Now, after all of those were selected and extruded inwards, more polygons were created. So then I wrote the second program. This is what you're seeing right here. This second program looks similar to the first, except the numbers are all bigger. Starting right from the very top here. Okay, you notice these numbers? They're starting in the 34th, in the nearly 35,000. And now they're going all the way up in the range of to 55,000. So after I ran this program, this is what I get. Now here's the dragon. And what it is, I'm going to zoom in here carefully. We're going to see that the back of each polygon is selected. And so now I'm simply going to be taking these and I'm going to scale them down. It's going to be scaling down all the various polygons. I'm going to zoom in towards the front because that's where it's showing me the currently selected, the gizmo to manipulate the sizing of the polygon. At this point, once I go to scale, what happens is I'm going to scale this down, and it's going to be scaling all the polygons down. Again, we're talking manipulating thousands and thousands of polygons. So here we are. As you can see, if you look very closely, we actually have the polygons still selected here, but Max doesn't let me zoom in that far, cutting plane issues. But you could still see that these polygons are selected. They've been scaled down, and what ended up rather interesting happening as I worked on this, it is as you scale down, let's say here's one that I'm looking at. I wanted this area scaled down, but in effect when it scales it down, this front end, the back ends of the others get widened out. So it ended up doing a great job of doing this kind of simulated these triangles to simulate a kind of texture that represents scales on the dragon. If I move along the dragon, so in effect this is how I designed the scales in the dragon using 2 sets of programming languages, 2 sets of programming code to produce these kind of scales that when you see the object up close you can actually see and sort of feel the texture of these kind of triangles or scales that represent the scales of a dragon. Here's my bot in action producing the second piece of the dragon, the main dragon body. I decided to start with the main dragon body because that's the largest piece, but so far it's coming out nicely. We just started to build a couple moments ago, and that's what we have so far. Here's an example of part of the workflow to produce this dragon. What you're seeing here is the main dragon body. Yes, it's because it's a Chinese dragon, looks a bit like a snake. And it's missing an entire area here. And that's because what I'm doing is I have to take this dragon and chop it apart piece by piece. And I have to take only enough, sizable enough, that's going to fit in the workspace of the MakerBot. In other words, it can only produce something 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters by about 110 to 130 millimeters. So this red part is the selected part of the dragon body. I'm actually then going to detach these red selected polygons from the body of the dragon. Simply hit the detach button, give it a proper name. I try to keep a proper sequential name to these objects. Now that it's detached, it's a separate piece. I'm going to deselect the current one, the main body, hide it for now. Now I'm going to have to go into this one, change the pivot point of the object so it's in the middle of the object. Since this object must be flat as it's being built on the bot or else it will not work, I got to make it flat based on one of the planes. Now here, I'm basing it on the left viewport. MakerBot actually running and producing one of these pieces. I've got to run this thing like a factory. I've got only about 2 weeks to produce this entire dragon. 2 weeks left. Basically, 2 weeks from today is the fair. I got to make it flat to the viewport so it's going to sit properly flat inside the bot. Then not only do I have to flatten this thing, and I'm using 2 viewports, then I actually have to go into the object, and the problem is that because I'm slicing it, the main body is essentially a twisted cylinder. I have to go in here and close up the holes between the walls. There's essentially a gap between the walls, and Max will refresh in a minute. There's a gap between the walls, the inner and the outer walls of the object, so I have to seal up both ends of it. I go here, zoom out a little bit, apply this modifier called cap holes, and now I've got a properly modified object where both ends of the object are properly capped. Now I can export from Mac an STL file, and the STL file goes into the other software here. As you saw, this software, the STL file gets brought in here, scaled up properly to the right size, make sure it's in the middle. This bounding box represents what the bot can print. Then, as you see, it's doing it right now. It's slicing it, and it creates the slicing, which is G-code, which is output, and the bot uses the G-code to direct it to produce the plastic and how to lay it down. Okay, as it's a Saturday morning, and I'm working on the bot and my dragon, I need my coffee. This was actually the first piece I tried to print for the dragon. And the problem with this, I noticed, is it's smaller than I hoped it was going to be. The other problem, 2 problems I noticed with this here. One, I took all the time to do the scales, and I don't know if you're even going to be able to see it very much. But the problem is, at this size, the scales don't print up very well. The bot has limitations about how small certain details can be. Then there was this problem. I don't know why I kept doing it. It was doing strings across the darn thing. Here's the first piece of the dragon that was successfully built. And again, you're going to notice inside of it has all these weird strings. They really shouldn't be there. It's how the Skein Forge sliced up the model. Now here, as I said, I realized that this was too small, so I turned around and scaled up the entire thing by an additional 25%. So it's 125%. Now it feels big enough so it's going to make a sizable dragon. Also at this point now, you can actually see relatively, even in the video, the scales are coming out. It's not as defined as I had hoped. It looks much better in 3D, but it can't handle doing that much detail. And then you'll notice I have this strange sort of like a groove on it. That groove, that's where all the, I don't know what you want to call it, like triangular spikes on the back of the dragon. Hello folks, as you can see, it's 10:32 a.m. Saturday the 22nd, exactly 1 week before the beginning of the fair on Saturday the 28th, and now I am under big time pressure to finish this project. Okay, here it is Saturday morning, and here's the pieces I've got printed so far. There's 14 pieces, and I'll have them roughly positioned in the shape of what's been printed so far. There's 14 pieces. I have to print something like 27 or 28 pieces for the entire object. And I'll also just zoom in here so you see that within each piece I have a sequence number. So I need to know exactly where they fit, so when I go to put them all together that they will fit properly. And here's what we have so far. Again, it looks like it really is going to be approaching somewhere like around 3 feet long. Problem is, I'm running out of plastic and running out of time. Hopefully I'm going to have enough plastic to print all these red pieces, but I'm running out of plastic. Okay, here's the dragon body. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting tape down the middle of the back. Notice the shape of the tape. You see the shape on the body. That's in the very middle of it is where I'm going to put the spikes, the triangular notches on the back of the dragon. I've still got glitches. This piece right here, don't know why this ended up being bigger. It doesn't match to this, even though this piece does match to this. This one right here, for some reason during the printing, the entire thing shifted. But I'm in a time crunch and I'm running out of plastic. There's no way I'm going to reprint that piece. Like here, another one, it did a little bit of shift. It's hard to see it, but there's like a shift here, and there's the joint between this piece and this piece. So it did just this little bit of a shift. I don't know why, and occasionally it happens. Something bumps, I don't know what it is. But I just keep moving along. That one doesn't look too bad. And I'm going to be trying to fix a bunch of these issues with this red plastic that is sitting melting in the acetone. And if you notice this, it basically is like a paste. It's plastic mixed with acetone, and it's like a liquid plastic. But instead of it being liquid, it's more like a paste. Should be interesting to see what I can use, do, and fix some of these glitches in the body of it. Well, here's the kitchen, and this has been my workspace for the weekend. I've been using the island in the middle. That's the liquid acetone I pour out of there, pour it into my shot glass. Use a paintbrush and dabble it in. Then I join the pieces together, the tail piece, and now I've done the taping. That's the tape that's going to go down the middle to protect it, so that the middle I can still use that and join the other pieces on. So I'm done with the taping, and as you can see, there's just one last piece that has to join between there. It's actually going to be another green one right there. Work on the dragon head began inside 3D Studio Max. I needed to make the back of the head the right size so that it would join properly with the neck of the dragon. I began modeling it at max, but after a while I realized to get a really organic, good look to it, I needed to bring it into my other program of choice, Sculptress, for doing organic modeling. So I exported the file out as an OBJ file to bring it into Sculptress. Once I imported it into Sculptress, I had to turn on symmetry and begin modeling it. And then eventually I came up with this design. Once I finished it in Sculptress, I had to get it back into Max. However, I ran into problems. The OBJ file that I exported out of Sculptress would not go back into Max. Instead, I had to open up the Replicator G program, which slices the models and preparing it for the bot and controls the bot operations. I brought the head into Replicator G. I scaled it up to the proper size. At that point, I had to export it again out of Replicator G, and I was able to successfully bring it inside of 3D Studio Max, and then began to cut up the dragon head into pieces that could be printed on the bot. Okay, here we go. That's Mark, and he's working on my Chinese dragon. So Mark is working on my dragon. He just pulled the tape off. Thank you, sir. The amount of hours is insane. There's Mark, hard at work, adding those pieces in, putting those spikes on the dragon tail. And Mark's doing a bang-up job. And I think people are really getting excited about seeing it because they're basically seeing the whole thing coming together. Not only is the body coming together, but Mark also put together the head. So you've got the head coming together as well as the bottom of the head, the bottom of the mouth, and he assembled the tongue. There's Cody, my assistant for the day. There's my dragon. There's my bot, dysfunctional because I didn't have it running today. Now what I'm attempting to do, I stir it up a bit, make it nice and smooth as possible. This is the tongue. And because what I want to do is experiment and see how well this would work, this is the underside of the tongue. So if I flip this over, this is what the rest of the tongue actually looks like. So I decided that I wanted to make the tongue this kind of red, and it ends up being shiny, and it's turning out kind of rather interesting. It's giving a weird, shiny, red, bumpy, very organic texture to it, just naturally. So now that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking the inside of the head, that's the top of the head, upside down. As you can see, there's the eyes, so that's the top of the head, and that is the bottom of the head, the jaw. And I'm painting, again, with this weird plastic material, red liquidized plastic. It turns into like a paste, and I'm painting it on there to basically try to simulate the inside of the dragon's mouth, because it does sort of have a feel of almost a fleshy kind of look to it. Okay, here's another set of pieces that I'm working on. These represent the spikes that are on the back of the dragon. I've designed these spikes and then I print a whole set of them. Because they're small pieces, it makes no sense to print one at a time. So I've got them kind of joined together. And I have polygons that go from one to the other. So if you look carefully, there is like almost like a single kind of a path that goes around, almost a single path. There's some extra joins like in here, but for the most part there's a single path. I'm now going to cut these all apart, clean them all up, and prepare them to be assembled onto the dragon's back. There it is, the teeth. I'm actually calling it the dragon denture plate because the teeth are all printed in a unit like a plate. And of course there's the front fangs. And at this point I'm going to start taking them all apart and cleaning them all up and preparing them so that they can be assembled this weekend. I'm preparing final phase of construction for the head. As you can see right here, all the teeth have been printed. I'm preparing the mouth. I'm going to give another coat of the pinkish plastic paste to the bottom of the mouth. I'm going to be applying some more of the spikes. All those green spikes, I have now a whole batch of yellow spikes. They're going to be going in between. And then I'm going to have a smaller set of spikes that go to the front towards the head, and a smaller set that are going to be added that are going to be going towards the tail. Here we are, the bottom of the head, the mouth, the teeth are inserted, and the tongue. And there it is. Okay folks, there you go. There's the head so far. That's also the body so far. I've added more spikes to it. I still have some work to do. There's gaps where the spikes should be. None of spikes in the back, that's the front. And those spikes got twisted during transport, and I need to fix that. I need more spikes in the back. And I'm designing a tail back. That is just a test. That's not the actual one. I want to design something big and spiky on the back. So I'm still working on that. Hello folks. This is the end of part 1, the first video that shows the production of the dragon. There will be a second part follow-up that will show the completion of the dragon. Also, just to let people know, I may be possibly selling this on eBay eventually. So if there's enough interest from people out there, I may be selling it on eBay. At the end of the video, I will also display my email address in case people want to email me and ask me questions.